Manchester, and hello Hull. My name is Sabrina, as was mentioned. I'm an artist based at Percussive Media Studio in Bristol. On the stage with us today is Joseph Walton, our creative technologist, and the awesome musicians Oliver Mason and Coldicutt. So we're here to share a project in the making with you called OPUS. And OPUS has been created and developed in response to a series of public workshops at Bristol Science Centre. So OPUS as a project explores what people think a sound tastes like. And we've opened up conversations to consider how people can bridge the gap between how they experience sounds and how that can be reinterpreted into a taste, sensation, or flavour. So we're going to do exactly that with you now. So in a moment, I'm going to ask Ollie to play something for you. And now I'd like you to close your eyes. So once Ollie starts playing, I'd like you to think about what comes to mind. It could be how you feel, words, colours, sensations, anything. After Ollie. So keep your eyes closed and just think about what came to mind. Was it any sort of colours? Was it a soft sound? Was it hot? Was it cold? Was it soft or thunderous? And now I'd like you to open your eyes and think about the words in your head and try and align them with any sort of taste, sensations, or flavours that can be best suited. That's something that you're familiar with. So I can reveal that the majority of people we spoke to associate the sound of a cymbal to that of cold fizzy lemon. I love that response. And that's because cold fizzy lemon is just as harsh and acidic as the jarring metallic sound that's being heard. So that, in a nutshell, is the process in which OPUS is being made. And the exciting part is potentially how this can be made into a performance. So we're going to test that now. But instead of cymbals, we're going to engross you in percussion. You're going to be tasting percussion, hearing percussion, and being percussive at the same time. So each of you have a suite which has been made bespoke from No Boundaries. If you haven't got a suite, please put your hand up as there are spares that can be handed out. Great. And I'd now like you all to stand up. Thank you. And so, in a moment, Wolf and Ollie are going to play you some samba percussion, and you will be using the suites, but not just yet. Just hold on to them in the meantime. If you prefer to feel the sound rather than hear it, we have some spheres over here that can be put against your chest to feel the beat of the percussion. And they can be handed out. So once Ollie and Wolf start playing, I'd like to think about what words come to mind in the same way that you did with the cymbal. After you. So I'd now like you to unwrap your sweets. And I'd like you to put both in your mouth, but you cannot the one. I'd just like you to put both in your mouth. Great. And I'd like you to kind of think about again what sort of words came to mind for you when listening to Ollie and Wolf play percussion. And so for the next 5 minutes, you're going to be tasting the responses that we've had from the workshops that people have best associated flavour-wise to the sound of samba percussion. So for example, the go-go has seemed to be fresh and cool, like cucumber and pineapple. And the surdo and conga seems to be more mellow and warm, like coconut and creamy avocado. And the woodblock and maracas, they They seem to be more dry roasted and kind of spicy, and put together as a heady mix of spicy fruit and sharp lime. But I'd like you to honour your opinion on what the flavour of samba with this percussion should be. So if you haven't done so already, I'd like you to completely unwrap your wrapper as carefully as you can. Great, and have a look to see what colour yours is. And I'd like you to now all face the shiny part our way. Brilliant. And I'm now going to pass you over to Will, who's going to explain what's going to happen next.
Right. If you all take note of the colour that you have on the shiny side that we've just told you to face away from yourselves, you will either have a green wrapper, you'll have an orange wrapper, or a yellow wrapper. So this also goes for Manchester as well. If everyone with a green wrapper, if you can just wave it manically in the air for me. Manchester, lovely, very good. Anyone with an orange wrapper, if you could make a beautiful sort of swaying motion like that. Oh, lovely. Anyone with a yellow wrapper, just statically hold it in the air as to say, yes, we are yellow. Right, I'm basically going to teach you a rhythm according to your colour. Initially, we're going to work with the greens. Where are we, greens? Manically waving. Beautiful. I'm going to show you the pattern with the go-go's. Sabrina, helpfully, is going to show us how to get the best tone out of your sweetie wrappers, okay? So, eyes on her, ears on me. Ready? Beautiful. Yes. Manchester. Yes. Beautiful. Keep that going. We're going to put that in context with me and Ollie.
The way. This is slightly late with Manchester.
Beautiful. Just a reminder. Fantastic. Oranges, where are you? Sultry waving in the air. This is going to be your pattern. Let's hear it. Beautiful, in context. 1, 2, 3. We've never done this with as many people. This sounds so good. Right, oranges. Yes, sounding great. Okay, yellows, lastly. Where are we, yellows? We are yellow. This is your pattern. You're going to be shaking, okay? Up. Oh. Up. Yes. Okay, this time we're going to kick it again, but we're going to be playing nice and loudly. But what we're going to do is we, at some point, are going to stop, leaving Hull, just Hull, playing, and then we're going to play again, and then we're going to stop in Hull, and we're just going to watch Manchester play. Now, they're over 100 miles away, so Manchester, you have to play super duper loudly. So here in Hull we can hear. And then we're going to kick it again, and I would like... Who am I going to pick on?
Oh, no!
Oh, who do I like the look of? You, sir. Yes, Mr. Yellow. You're going to do a fantastic solo for us, and you can do absolutely anything you want, okay? Brilliant. Okay, here we go. Ready? A 1, a 2, a... something that's just wandered in. Okay, it's solo time. Are we ready? Okay. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4.
So our first contributor of this theme is Yemisi Mokuolu. She's an independent producer and she's worked with a range of partners, including Arts Council England, British Council, Creative Skills Set, the Goethe Institute and UNITAR, providing research, mentoring and training programs to develop the cultural and creative industries across Europe and Africa. Can I have a warm welcome for Yemisi.
Thank you. I actually needed that, except for the fact there's this really tickly, the sweet thing hasn't agreed with my throat, so great start to my presentation. Anyway, and it's like really peppery. So, yes, let me read from this. So, I'm Yemisi, and a lot of the work I do as an independent producer is very much about bringing audiences closer to the art. And last October, I felt really privileged. I was at the London Film Festival opening talk with David Oyelowo, and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And he was talking about inclusion, and I was like, okay, all right. And he was talking about how frustrated he was at the fact that he's still talking about inclusion. And, you know, there was loads of sort of whooping in the audience and, you know, lots of agreement. And what he wanted to do is he wanted us to understand inclusion better. And he was talking about his brother who lives in Australia and comes over to their house and he'll spend 2 weeks there. They make him feel comfortable, they do everything they can, they even buy the coffee in that he likes, even though David and his family don't like the smell of coffee, and he feels great. And then he goes back to Australia and everything's cool. Then David kind of like expressed that. But actually, what my brother really wants to do is move in. At this point, I was really lost because he was kind of like, I don't know whether the word is analogy or metaphor, but he was trying to basically say that that's how artists and audiences feel, the brother, just to, you know, over-egg the cake, if you're not following me. And, you know, and the house is the virtual arts institution or venue. And I'm thinking, I don't want to move in. I'm quite happy with my space. I would love for people to come to my home and feel welcome. And I would really love to have them come round. And I would love to be able to go into their home, their house, and feel equally as welcome. And I was talking to some friends about this because I had a real problem about that sort of notion of people's need and desire to actually want to be in someone else's house as I was thinking about it. And then my friends were like, yeah, it's so funny when you go to like an arts venue or something and you want to sort of interact with them and participate with them. It's like they pretend they're not at home. And then, you know, they've got like the curtains and they're sort of like hiding on the floor. And I was thinking, is that how people perceive like interacting with arts and culture, that the people in this house are hiding? And I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden I realized why there was so much, I guess, colourful language and so much passion about this idea of the relationship between self and art is because it's their house too. Oh my God, I just realised it's their house. It's not your house, it's their house as well. They have every right, a claim on that space. It's their culture, it's their arts and culture. This is why there are so many people who are knocking on the door, or they are very kind of like quietly picketing and slightly protesting because they don't feel that they're allowed into these like cultural spaces. So I was like taking that along and I thought, you know what, it's time that we extended the table, pulled up some more chairs, created a situation where people could actually be part of this house. I mean, some will stay for a while, some will stay forever, some will just come and go, some will want you to come to their house and, you know, and participate in their cultural experiences and their cultural exploration, and equally would want to come and feel welcome at yours. So taking this on, I realized that was kind of like almost the fundamental basis of my work as a programmer, and all the way I've been interacting with audiences. And so it was really interesting to start to put that into an organizational and operational structure. So it's like, this room is an interesting room because everybody is pretty much on the side of change and don't feel like they are the cultural custodians. So much so, some people might do. But the point is that it's not just because you have a theatre degree, just because you have a degree, just because you're working in those spaces, may not necessarily mean that you are the curator solely or the programmer. So it's kind of like time to open the doors. I know loads of organisations are doing that. We've had so many wonderful examples of how they're doing that, and it's really encouraging to experience that. I produce a festival in Ghana called the Asabaku Festival, and it's interesting to me because the volunteers as well as the investors and the board members, we've never really sort of seen them as we've never really seen a hierarchy. They've always been part of the making of the festival. They've always made it possible for us to do what we need to do. Without them, we can't put on the festival or the shows. So everyone's ideas are equally welcomed and equally valued. Everyone is free to participate in whatever way they want to. And I think we had some examples of the cultural connectors as well. That sense of free-flowing and that sense of joint shared ownership. Because of that, what we've been able to do is, I guess, liberate ourselves financially. We're okay. If there's ever a problem, there's always someone to kind of come in and fix it. If we are running low on ideas, I'm quite happy to sort of let someone else step in terms of artistic direction and be able to maybe do something else. So there's that free flowing, and I include myself into that as well. There's always the situation of how do we change, because things like money always come into the conversation. And I think, look, at the end of the day, we just have to build new financial models. I always think to myself that people shouldn't be thinking about buying foot spas and all those types of things for Mother's Day. I would have really loved it if my family had said, hey, Mum, you could go to the Epsom Playhouse and then you could be in a poetry reading, or you could be in a play reading, or I could participate in something like that. I have a number of friends that are having lunch and they don't have anything to do. They'll spend 20 minutes in the park on their own, and then they're like, I might as well just go back to work because there's nothing to do. I think they should be automatically just walking into an arts venue or space and participating in what's going on. I don't know, I just feel that there should be this kind of ready energy always in those spaces where people can kind of participate and they can get involved. The festival environment that we create makes sure that happens. There's always something constantly happening, which is being curated by whoever's in that space at that time. And I guess our job is really to sort of allow for those ideas to take shape and to create a stable enough platform and environment for people to be able to express themselves creatively and to be, I guess, custodians of their own culture. I mean, audiences are changing, so passive engagement, I guess, putting kind of a them and us spin on it, a lot of art seems to be passively enjoyed, meaning just sitting down and just kind of having a look at what's going on. And, if you think about how social media has taken off so rapidly, people are actively sharing their thoughts on Twitter, they're writing their own small plays, people are making films on Snapchat. There's so much content that's being created. And then they're creating audiences and they're finding spaces, whether it be the park, the Scout Hut, wherever it is, so that they can actually show or present their creativity to an audience. So there's this absolute, it's almost like a primal need to express oneself. And I'm thinking, there's something disjointed going on that 90% of the population aren't engaging with the places that are titled arts institutions. I don't know. I guess through creating kind of like inclusive experiences, we've gone from a very small network to legions, and I mean legions. We have got a ridiculous database of people, whereby if I send out a message, I tend to rise a little mini army of like arts supporters, and that's a wonderful feeling. That feeling that you've been able to sort of like pull something out of someone, tap into their interest, and really bring them into the art world and help them to express themselves. That's why our shows sell out. It's as simple as that. And that's why we're not really so worried about our sustainability and our growth, because we understand that tapping into people's passions, including them, ensures that we can sustain ourselves artistically and economically. Let me just... Okay, so let me just finish off, actually, because of the time, sorry. So the most important thing is, like, by bringing audiences into spaces as artists, curators, and I love that, cultural connectors, benefactors, it just ensures growth and sustainability in the popularity of our production. Not sort of like seeing them as the other, as the audience that needs to be served. I think we need to get to a point now where we actually have to, do we need to smash everything up or change everything completely and radically say we need to build new financial sustaining models, new operational, new organizational models, so that we can actually engage with the audience of today? The millennials of today, they're not Generation X who built these institutions that we are inside of. Generation X is very much about acquisition. It's about what more can I get? How can I be the best? You've got millennials who are very much about how can I interact? How can I be part of something? Now you've got Generation Z, where it's kind of like, I'm the leader. I am in charge of myself. So kind of like, how can theatres stay in touch with what their audiences need, knowing there's these shifts in needs by audiences? So I guess I would say, let's start by opening our doors, listening to our audiences, and listen to their call and desire to be custodians of their culture. And I guess I now understand what David was saying. Basically, it's their house too, it's their culture too, and it's their home too. Thank you very much.
Hello. Right, yeah. So, I spent, I think 12 years working in the arts, and I'm out of it now, and I'm running a tank that is focused on making the internet better and more equitable for everyone. And the thing I'm going to talk about is really the idea of audience in the biggest sense, in terms of how we commission and how we think about the ways of connecting to them. And I'd like to say that the web is not really the marketing tool now. And that may seem kind of counterintuitive. And I have experience of working in lots of different kinds of arts organisations of different sizes. I was the person who helped turn the Royal Opera House from having a page on the internet to having an enormous presence. And that was like constantly a conversation about, is it marketing or is it art? And I'd be in meetings and people would ask, and I'd say, I don't know. And along the way, I've done lots of kind of slightly unusual and interesting things, like putting a video booth in the back of the cab and driving it around the country, and making things like the first podcast from a cultural organisation. And after sort of years of chipping away and trying to do different things, I moved on. And I partly moved on because I realised I'd been sort of trying to move at the speed of technology as opposed to the speed of the arts. And a lot of the things I'm about to talk about, I first talked about here in 2005, which was 12 years ago. So, you know, it can happen. And I've got two main things to say. The first is that now is a good time for great art. And the other is if you build it, people don't just turn up. And I'm starting here because then it means we can end on the good news. So, this here is obviously the reference to the Kevin Costner film, The Field of Dreams, which is about a man who builds a baseball pitch before the ghost, and he does it because he has some problems with his relationship with his dad. And I'd like to be really clear, that is not the way to think about the capital development project. Yeah? And yet, it's been quite influential, I would say. Now, I'm about to be really cheeky. So, I have two things to put into evidence here of things that maybe didn't have to happen. So the space, I was actually on the original panel for this, and so I'm like slightly to blame, I guess, and canvas. And the thing about them is both of these have been made to apparently engage people in the arts. But really, they're sort of like islands. They haven't really worked. They're not connected to the internet. They're out on their own. And it's because just the act of putting something on the internet doesn't make it easy to find. And that's partly because it's really competitive to be doing online marketing now. Where at a time when News Corps spent 114 million buying a video distribution, that's a lot. And that, if we're really honest, there's a very tiny number of large businesses that dominate the internet now. And that probably isn't how it ought to be, but it's how it is. And it means, importantly, there is no free space. There's only space if you have hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend on advertising. There are no public protections that say there has to be art on the internet. And it means that just having the Twitter and like £10,000 of Google ads isn't really going to help. And it means that you need to be thinking about it in another way. As opposed to thinking about advertising and marketing and hoping that people turn up, the thing to do is to learn from the things that work elsewhere and to put your art out there on the street, on the internet. And that rather than kind of thinking about YouTube and Facebook and things as marketing or advertising, we put the art there. And to explain it, I'm going to talk about something that is maybe slightly out of keeping here, which is Starbucks. And if you think about it, they have done a good job of being everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And they know how to make people buy the things they don't even know they want. And because they're everywhere and they're easy to get to. And when they choose the location, they thought really hard about not asking people to go out of their way. And if you think about it, there aren't a lot of people who seek out art. It's not like one of those things that's really sort of comforting and easy and bland like something like telly. Great art is difficult and it's hard. And it means that actually we need to think of the ways of making it appealing. And to go back to Starbucks, the really, 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 really interesting thing is they choose the stores on the right-hand side of the corners in the States, because then people in the cars don't have to park and cross the road. Yeah? They make it really, really, really easy. And to me, this seems incredibly important. They're not even asking a person to pause. They're putting it there in temptation's way. And that, how about if we thought about art differently? How about if we were thinking on the internet about putting it into places that people weren't stumbling over? And there's already the great paradigms for this. There's public art. There are things you see that are amazing and extraordinary, or that are unsettling, and that really I haven't seen any equivalent to those kinds of things that are taking over the streets and kind of wedging in our heads on the internet. And I think that's a challenge to everybody here. And the things that are most interesting are things like bots that read you bits of books, or organisations who hand over their Twitter accounts to artists. And none of these are really about the driving audience. They're about, I don't know, showing kind of tiny, interesting things and opening up doors. Or like, if you have an Instagram account, this is really obvious, but can you turn it into a place that ideas live? I really, really like this article here, and it's about, and it's worth reading. But the thing that's important about it is he's talking about digitising and making art and putting it out into the world. And there are lots of, this is happening particularly in the cultural sector, I mean in heritage, where collections are digitised more. So previously in the arts, in the bit of the arts I've worked in, we've spoken a lot about open data, and we've kind of lost the sight of that. And it sounds a bit nerdy and a bit techy, but I think it enables lots of things. So, to leave you on a good thought, we've never needed art more. We've never needed more creators. There is an enormous amount of space on the internet. We've never needed more writers and artists and filmmakers, and it's up to you to make it better. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Adam Brown. He's a leading figure in the sport and community ownership field and sports governance. He's contributed widely to the development of policy and practice in this area, working regularly with Sport England and Supporters Direct, amongst others. Adam is a co-founder of Substance, a leading research company based in Manchester, specialising in sport, community and social impact. He's also, and people in Manchester will be aware of this, a founding board member of FC United of Manchester, an award-winning supporter-owned football club for 11 years. Believe me, when they come and play my local team, it's off the scale. The supporters are amazing. On the board, he led the development of the club's Broadhurst Park Stadium and community facility in Moston, North Manchester, that opened in 2015. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak and attend today. What I wanted to talk about as a provocation really was to talk about how the audience can be more than consumers and how the audience can be harnessed really for cultural organisations. And I will talk quite a bit about sport, so apologies for that in advance. Please bear with me. If I can I start with a fairly blunt question, which is, if your audiences are so important to you, why don't you hand over control to them? And I don't mean control in terms of a day, a weekend, or even a month of programming to one group or another. I don't mean the audience vote for the favourite film at a particular time of year, and I don't mean community events that make your CSR programme look better. What I mean is ownership, and that's lock, stock and keys to the theatre. And that might be quite an alarming thought for arts venues and for a sector which has for many years really relied on the charitable and trust model in terms of operating. It's a sector which tends to appoint the great and the good and the experts onto its boards of trustees, and which can at times treat the public at large like an audience to be programmed for rather than communities to be engaged in more meaningful ways. And even if that sounds a little bit harsh, and I appreciate that it may do, the sector more generally, and arts venues in particular, hardly throw open the doors of the boardrooms to the general public in terms of ownership. And that's somewhat surprising, because in many areas of the UK economy at present, from pubs to post offices to food outlets to green energy, and yes, to sport, the response to the crisis in public funding and to globalisation and some of the effects of that has been precisely that, which has been to throw open the doors of the boardroom, hand over the share certificates and let local people take control. But that really hasn't been as evident in the arts. It has in some isolated examples. And this is in the context when community-owned businesses are growing really rapidly. Community business market grew 9% in 2015. It grew 5% in 2016. Compared to growth over that period of 1% in the charitable sector. There's over 7,000 community businesses generating over £1 billion of income a year and £2 billion, sitting on £2 billion worth of assets. So it's not insignificant in terms of an ownership model. They engage something like 250,000 people as volunteers within the businesses. And since 2009, there's been 120,000 people who have invested £100 million in things like community shares to help fund these ventures. And that's an alternative source of finance, as we're just hearing being needed, and alternative financial models that the arts sector could really learn from. So a quick story about FC United. I was one of those who set it up. It was set up by several hundred disenfranchised and disaffected Manchester United fans who, faced with the purchase of their football club by an American mogul and plunging it into £600 million of debt, had a hissy fit and threw their season tickets in and buggered off to form their own football club. And the response was FC United Manchester, supporter-owned, democratic, not-for-profit, semi-professional. The club is one which the fans, the audience, if you like, own and wholly control. And it was protected as well from other people owning it through its constitution. I served on the board until April last year, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But since 2005, FC United has progressed to the giddy heights of the National League North. That's, if you know where the Football League ends, it's 2 promotions below that. But that in itself is 5 promotions in its time. In 2016, it had 5,000 members, turned over between £1 and £1.5 million. It has 300 plus regular volunteers a year. More importantly than that, it built its own stadium and community sports facilities in North Manchester, a 5,000 capacity stadium costing between £6 and £7 million. And it's won awards for its community programme and was shortlisted for the Public Buildings of the Year award in 2016. And it's managed to achieve all this by doing, I think, 5 things. One, it gave complete control to the fans, not just fan forums or people on boards, but 1 member, 1 vote, 1 share, 1 vote. No matter how much you put into the club, you get 1 vote. And so it kept everything on an equitable level. It made ownership open so anybody can join at any time and be part of it. It involved innovative finance. It generated £2.1 million in community shares, which is a form of withdrawable share capital that you can do in some kind of cooperative organisations, which was the biggest amount raised by any type of organisation at the time. And it pioneered the use of social investment tax reliefs in doing that. So it brought benefits to those who invested without placing a huge amount of debt on the club. And it wrote its community benefit function into its constitution. So it, in the constitution, the directors have a legal obligation to serve the community. There is a statutory permanent asset lock that means nothing can be sold and the profits distributed to members, a kind of anti-mutualisation measure. But perhaps most importantly, I think this is probably where the big learning is, it unleashed a real wave of ordinary people doing things that they'd never done before, whether that was running match days, organising teams. There was a group who initiated a whole greening programme around the stadium, planting orchards and vegetables and God knows what else around the ground. They managed match day traffic. And this volunteering was based entirely on the attachment that people had to the club through their ownership. That was the fundamental that underpinned it all. It wasn't a club they went to support. It was a club they owned and belonged to them. And I think that's been the key to not just FC United, but other examples of community-owned businesses in sport and elsewhere. It isn't all positive and it isn't all easy. Following getting into the ground last summer, there was a fairly vicious campaign against the incumbent board at the time, including myself, by groups of members, and the board has completely changed since. There have been some financial problems since then, and a decline in membership and season ticket holders. So it's not straightforward by any means, and democracy can be pretty brutal at times, but nonetheless those achievements stand. In my day job of Substance, we've done additional research into community businesses and community-owned sports organisations, and you find huge levels of commitment of volunteering. An average of about 100,000 a year was generated in volunteer value in 6 case study clubs we looked to. And it binds organisations to their communities in a way that you don't see in charitable models in the same way. Of course, sport and football in particular are not the same as the arts. You've got that brand loyalty and team loyalty that perhaps is very strong in sport. But brand loyalty does exist in the arts. The patrons, the sponsors, the volunteers, the members, the season ticket holders, the people who campaign when a venue is under threat does exist. And that passion, debate, engagement that you see in arts and culture could be harnessed more effectively if there was a more open approach to the models around which arts is organised. But there's very little evidence of it in the Arts Power to Change as an agency that's putting £150 million into community businesses over the next 10 years. Less than 5% of applications to its community business fund were from arts centre organisations. Arts centres out of the subsectors they've identified were in the bottom third in terms of the number of businesses, the bottom third in terms of the number of the amount of income, and the bottom fifth in terms of asset value. So it's not featuring as heavily as it might. Other agencies, social finance, have done research around this, and they say although there's been a growth in things like community cinemas, there hasn't been the same kind of growth in other types of art organisation. Nesta has said that although the potential is there for community business and community investment to be a source of resilience and sustainability in the arts, there hasn't been the sector-wide support that you've seen in other areas for alternative models. The £7 million Arts Impact Fund has funded some studios, cooperatives and workplaces, but you don't tend to get theatres and galleries and other types of space. We have Audience Finder from the Arts Council, but you don't have audience ownership being promoted in the same way. And that's surprising. I just want to highlight a couple of reasons really why that is and what the potential is. Arts venues have faced the same challenges that sports sector, that public houses, that libraries have faced in terms of declining public finance. And similar, you can get problems about engaging new people and new audiences. Secondly, there's a huge amount to gain from community ownership, and I think there may be an opportunity that's being missed in that. There's money in them there hills that you can go and get. Private money in the form of community shares and other social investment, tax reliefs to help support that, and non-sector specific funding and non-grant funding that can come in to support organisations. The engagement and commitment of the audience to the organisation. Nothing does it more like a share certificate saying you co-own the venue. The engagements that those that the arts and others find hardest to reach, and we've heard some of that, quite a lot about that today. Well, recent research says that young people would far rather join and be involved in a social enterprise type business than a charity. And BME communities are much more likely to be involved in social enterprise than they are in charities. So there's a range of models out there that can be adopted. There isn't one size fits all by any means. And there's loads of support from Power to Change to Co-ops UK to Social Investment Business and other agencies. There's lots of support out there. And so community ownership is surely something that's worth exploring. So although we hear a lot about the need to engage new audiences and new communities, and the need to empower audiences, there isn't much evidence of them being allowed to actually own anything. Although we hear about the challenges being faced, some of the opportunities about addressing those challenges are perhaps being missed. Time's up, so I'll just leave you with a question, which is, what are we afraid of? There's a world out there for you to go and give everything to. Thank you.
I'm Megan Vaughan and I'm a theatre blogger and a zine maker. I've been researching fan culture for a little while now, partly in response to the fan reviews I've been finding of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child since it opened last summer. I'm interested in the alternative voice, the inexperienced voice, the amateur and the enthusiast within theatre criticism. And in order to find out more about the subject, I decided to come and meet a couple of experts. Fuck! Sorry. So I feel it's really honest and stop changing what you're saying, just say what you're going to say. I'm interested in the inexperienced voice in theatre criticism, the enthusiast and the amateur. And to find out more about fans, I decided to come and meet a couple of experts.
I think it's when you start to kind of think about an object or think about a text as being a really important part of your self-identity, that I think you move from being somebody who just likes something or is interested in something, I think, then to actually kind of self-identifying as being a fan of something.
My name is Philippa, I'm a Hufflepuff and I'm a Harry Potter fan. These are my Hufflepuff scarves. This one is a Cursed Child one, which I got from the theatre. This one is Newt Scamander's scarf, which is a vintage Hufflepuff scarf from when Newt was at Hogwarts. And then this is just a replica film one, which is the one that everyone has.
I have my Slytherin lanyard on. I'm a proud Slytherin.
Yeah, this is my shrine, or I like to call it the Wall of Shame, because I've seen the play entirely too many times and it's a bit embarrassing. So these are all the tickets that from the performances I've seen, and also the badges. They give out these little badges at the end of each part, telling you to hashtag keep the secrets. And yeah, so I've stuck up all the badges and all the tickets I have. And then I also have been to Stage Door a few times, so I've got some of my favourite programmes on display. I think this one was from a Sunday when like the most cast I've ever met at once came out, which was very cool. And this one is just the souvenir brochure.
While a lot of people enjoy things by themselves, I think one of the main ways in which we define fans is whether they have connections with other people, whether they talk to other people face-to-face, online, or whether they just feel like they have a connection with other people as well. So I think that sense of community is really important to defining what a fan is. And I think it's also about feeling like you have a space where you can express that without other people kind of judging you or thinking that it's strange to be invested in something. I think that sense of finding a safe space where you can talk about something, I think, is really important for a lot of fans and a lot of fandoms as well.
Do I feel part of community? Yes, I definitely think that, yeah, I definitely am part of the community. I feel like, yeah, I'm part of the Harry Potter community overall, but much more I'm part of the Cursed Child fan community.
So this post is by Philippa. It's one of many that she's written about the times that she's been to see Cursed Child. This one was from November last year. It wasn't the first time she'd seen it. It certainly hasn't been the last. But it's particularly interesting because she talks about the theory that she's been developing about Harry's waistcoat and the number of buttons in the waistcoat being directly representative of his emotional state. It says here really lovely, actually, I've only ever seen it happen before in the 2 scenes with Dumbledore, when he's becoming a child again, a child who just wants someone like a father to love him. But tonight I noticed he'd undone them all during the first part of the blanket scene, and it nearly destroyed me. It's those little details that I think when we see theatre regularly and we're not so invested in the stories, they're slightly lost on us. They don't mean as much. But reading about the show through Philippa's eyes, it's like seeing a different world.
I personally try to write things which are quite interesting and quite challenging, just because I think that that's interesting. I know there are a lot of people who write kind of just happy, like fluffy things, and that's amazing. That's like a really positive contribution to the fandom. But like personally, I like to explore what we're given in the script, and I like to write about difficult topics, and yeah, I kind of try to explore things that other people in the fandom aren't necessarily writing about. And recently, like just last weekend, I wrote a 14,000 word fic in which Albus was killed in the battle with Delphi. So it was kind of alternate universe, kind of diverged from canon right at the end. And I expected no one to read that, but I got some absolutely amazing comments from a lot of people. So that was really cool. That was very special.
A play happens once and is done, and it might never be done the same way again. Whereas being a fan of something like television, you can watch an episode repeatedly. And I think that opportunity for people to kind of share and come together is this kind of way of archiving and kind of community archiving, I think is really important for forms of media that are a bit more kind of temporary or more ephemeral.
There are so many moments in the play that kind of captivate the spirit of the world. Like there's a moment where Albus and Scorpius look at Hogwarts through the trees as they come out of the Forbidden Forest, and you feel like you're looking at Hogwarts with them, and you feel like you're there.
So where are we heading off to now?
So now we're going to Christ Church College in Oxford, which is where some of the Harry Potter films were made. For example, like The Great Hall was filmed there. So this is the original dining hall where they filmed The Great Hall in Harry Potter.
They're still eating. Like, people are literally getting ready for dinner in here. What a letdown, eh?
I know, right?
Where's the floating candles?
I demand floating candles. I went to LeakyCon, I think, in 2011 when it was in London, and one on my fandom bucket list, I'd always wanted to go to a Harry and the Potters concert, but they were always in America or whatever, and I'd never been able to see them, and they were at LeakyCon, so I was in the mosh pit at Harry and the Potters concert, and it was like the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. It was incredible. But yeah, I think that even though fandom kind of continued, having Cursed Child and Fantastic Beasts, it has kind of created almost a new era of Potter. Like, it's kind of revived the fandom, and it's something that people are talking about again, which is really exciting.
I think if fans feel like producers respect them, and even if they don't necessarily do what they want all the time, I think they like to feel like the creators know that they're there and are not taking them for granted. And I think examples where fandoms don't really form are quite often when there isn't that opportunity to kind of find out more information, and when they feel they're being sort of let down, or that producers are sort of embarrassed by them and would rather they weren't there at all.
So this is my midnight release copy, which is stamped for the Waterstones Piccadilly midnight release. So there's only like a limited number of these stamped ones, and it's signed with like basically all of the cast apart from Jamie, who never comes out. So yeah, I need to like get that sorted. I'm waiting for cast change to get it.
And I think that if you think you're a fan, you're a fan. And I think if you think you're part of a fandom and you identify in that way, then I think you're part of a fandom.
I think that kind of fandom should do whatever it kind of wants. I think the whole point of fandom is to explore and kind of go more in depth into the world and enjoy it and make use of it and challenge it.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lucy Clarke. She's a business development and marketing director at Social Chain, who the Times recently described as one of Britain's most influential companies. They also slightly scarily said that the people running Social Chain were the millennial dropouts who control social media, and that the organisation has a head of happiness. With some of the biggest global brands as clients, Social Chain are clearly doing something right. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Lucy.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And unfortunately, I'm going to take some creative license and tell you that that's all completely true. Okay, so when I was 16 and desperately trying to get my GCSEs to become a teacher, one of my teachers sat me down and told me this, which really wasn't very nice. Left me feeling pretty rubbish, and that I wasn't going to go very far, and that I was a bit of a hopeless case, really. So that was great, so thank you, Mrs. Shoebrook. She wasn't an arts teacher, so hopefully she's not watching this. Luckily for me, about 4 years ago, I happily stumbled into this thing called digital marketing. And I remember a recruiter phoned me up when I moved to this wonderful city and said, "Oh, I've got a job in IT for you." And I was thinking, well, that's a bit rubbish because I don't know anything about computers. Only to be called back and they explained more about the role. And anyway, why am I telling you all of this? So back then, I'd literally had no idea. I was actually selling cars, so I had a glorious career since leaving school. But basically, the reason behind me telling you this is that digital marketing and marketing, shouldn't really be called digital marketing, marketing changes every single day. And if you can grasp that, then you can become a master incredibly quickly. So, no boundaries, make sure you adhere to that every single day, kind of forget what you already know, because we are all at the mercy of those big companies that Rachel mentioned earlier, and it's really important that you need to move quickly. So, fast forward to today. So, taking all of those learnings and telling you a little bit about Social Chain. So we are just down the road at the top of Portland Street. We have a very fabulous office. Someone actually trolled us on LinkedIn the other day saying it's adult babies that work there, because we have a slide, and you've got some examples in this lovely GIF. We have puppies, and it's a really fun environment, and the average age of the agency is 21. There's about 100 of us that work there, and we've now got 4 offices in Manchester, London, Berlin and New York. And, going from you should be sat at home with a baby to being able to call myself the marketing director of the most exciting company that the Times, they put us on the front page after Christmas. That was very exciting. Going from that to today, it's really exciting. So I'm going to take you through, and I'm unfortunately going to have to click through a few of these slides. I'm going to blame you, Hull. Apparently you've gone over time. So lesson 1, the company is 2 years old and the CEO is 24. I'm going to ask, has anybody heard about Social Chain or follow our CEO, Stephen Bartlett? Have you got some hands? Oh, doing half a good job then. Okay, so lesson 1 then. So never fall into the dangerous trap of thinking that people care about you as much as you care about you, because they really don't. And the reason behind this is that 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and science tells us that your attention has already moved somewhere else. So we don't believe that Gen Z now have an attention span less than a goldfish. It's just that your attention is moving and you are so busy in your brain. You're on your phone, you're on your laptop, you've got the radio on, you might be looking at the TV, there's a billboard going past you. So you've really, really got to think about where your audience's attention is. It's not that it's changing, it's just everywhere. So I'm going to skip down a couple of these, sorry, because I want to get you to the good bits. So a little bit about Social Chain then. So there's the founding reasons Social Chain is so glorious is that we own 400 social media accounts across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we have a reach of over 300 million people across the world. So that means that we can do some really, really fun things. We've taken some of those accounts and created brands. This is one of them. This is Sporf. And this is one of the biggest football communities or sporting communities across the world. I think we've got about 20 million people that follow us on here. And it's ever growing because we have a team of amazing people that create content that they know works on social. So I'm going to give you some examples of how we have a transformative impact on brands by reaching a generation in places where their interest is and we know what's going to get them excited. We've been called some fabulous and some not so nice things as well. And we're challenged all the time. Sorry, I'm going to flick through these. We're challenged all the time by some amazing companies to make things trend or to create noise across the social media landscape. One of those I'm going to take you through. So with the power that we have comes great responsibility, but also lots and lots of fun. So lesson 2, we very much apply this to any of the pieces of marketing that we do for our brands. So looking at the actions of groups, and we all know that people are sheep. So using that principle, we spoke at a conference last year, SoccerX. It is one of the largest sporting or football conferences, and it's held here in Manchester. So we were going up on stage to do a wonderful talk like this, wanted to shake up the audience because it was quite archaic, and didn't want to stand up and do a fancy presentation like this. So we took the name of the conference, SoccerX, and we looked at the football landscape and could see that Arsene Wenger wasn't spending any money at the moment. So created Rexeco, a 16-year-old fake, this is Rexeco taken from Google, fake footballer who had some ridiculous statistics. I'm going to use this funky little thing. Made him very, very expensive, very young, doesn't create very many chances. Sorry, I'm carrying on with some football examples here. Ridiculous statistics, really. Created some artwork to make it look genuine, pushed our magic social chain button, and we propelled this content across our network. So you can see a couple of minutes in, you've got some really people very, very excitable. So who is this Rexeco? 34 million for a 16-year-old, can't be right. And then 10 minutes in, we've still got it's when this happens, it's like watching reality TV. Keep going, we start trending, so about 15 minutes in, this is on Twitter. A little bit further into it, so about 20 minutes, you've got a chat that says at the bottom, where is it? That bloke has no idea about Rexeco, but then you've got, here we go, man, no one has a clue about Rexeco, but this chap was very keen on Rexeco. Can't wait for him to be able, so we understand, and you guys need to understand that you can, understanding your audience, you can create some really, really interesting things. So got closer to number one on Twitter, and then things moved over to Reddit. So this is quite a heavy, hardcore blogging website. And things have really gone when it hits Reddit. And of course, as we all know, the press don't do fact-checking anymore. So there you've got all of the papers writing about this ridiculous signing by Arsene Wenger, and it was all completely made up. Now, if you Google Rex Thecco, you have something like 30,000 search results turned back to you about this player who was completely fictitious. Now, we use some very interesting social listening tools. We partner with lots of amazing pieces of software. And with the reach that we have, we can basically find out what you all have for breakfast, I expect. So using one of those, you could see that we had nearly 150 million impressions. We have massive, massive reach around America, Brazil, and obviously the UK. And we proudly have the shirt hung up in our office still today. So why does it work then? So it's really powerful. We know that people are really, really passionate about it. Everybody is talking about it, so everyone else will talk about it. Prices are rising in places that you're putting your marketing and advertising spend. Consumers, we've spoke a little bit about it today. You know, you don't want to interrupt people. You want to create content where you know that your audience is going to consume it, because particularly the younger generations, they're expected to be advertised to, and they are so wise to it. So, you know, it's okay to advertise, but as long as you've got the right advert in the right place and it's native. Going back the wrong way. How do we get here? We'll run through these quickly. Research is absolutely key. There are amazing pieces of software out there, everything from drawing affinities and creating audience groups of people, understanding who are the right influencers. This is something that is a massive trend at the moment. Don't use, but think about ways that you can engage with your audience. 2017 is all about the micro-influencer and how you can look at brand advocates, but take them to scale. And we've created an amazing piece of software. It's difficult to work with hundreds of people, probably the most difficult thing. We've created a fantastic piece of software in-house where we can push out targeted adverts to people that are really engaged and interested in your products or your services or your art, and we can work with them to create content together and share it en masse. So you can work with 500 people that might have a smaller following rather than one person that doesn't have a lot of engagement around their audience. I'll keep doing that the wrong way. I'll wrap it up, but main messages are think about how you can go deeper than engagement. So yes, we all have these metrics where it's impressions and engagement, but if you can think about your audience, you can get that emotional connection, you can get those people to really, really care about it, really feel either way. You know, Donald Trump's used yet again, and we all bloody hate him. You know, he really, really, you love him or you hate him. I've got the example of this app, which was a game. It was one of our first products that we marketed, but we didn't take the app and tell everybody to download it. We told everybody not to download it. You will fail your degree. You will fail. You'll lose your girlfriend. Your life will be ruined if you download this app because it's so addictive. So what does everybody do? They downloaded the app, and I think it stayed at the App Store for like 2 weeks. Ridiculous. So you know, really, really try and make people care. And I don't have the lovely timer, so I think I'll leave it there just in case I've gone over time. But thank you very much, everybody. And yeah, follow us because we're a lot of fun. Thanks.